to FANSPLAINED, a media criticism podcast with Ryan and Em. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Em.
And with us this episode is the return of a special guest who you may remember from our Multiverse of Madness reaction episode, our friend Molly.
It me!
She's here!
Yay!
Through the computer this time. We planned on doing Daredevil the same weekend back in May when Molly was here. When we went to go see Doctor Strange, that did not happen.
Stuff happens.
But she's here with us now because she's our resident Daredevil expert and aficionado.
Yes.
So, as you may have guessed, we're continuing our deep dive exploration series into the MCU this episode with Daredevil Season 1.
Hell yes.
Originally colloquially, I can speak, colloquially, known as Netflix's Daredevil, though this is not quite accurate anymore.
Thanks, Disney.
Thanks, Disney.
They do so much.
At least they uploaded it to Disney Plus. I can't really fault them for that. So, on that note, Daredevil Season 1 was originally released in conjunction with Netflix and Marvel. It was produced by Marvel Television, which has since been folded into Marvel Studios. I think I covered that a little bit with Agent Carter.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
ABC Studios, which is owned by Disney, and Netflix. It dropped in April of 2015 and spanned 13 episodes. And the bonus of this and the other Marvel shows done with Netflix at the time is that it allowed for the release of the whole series at once. So you could just binge it all at one time if you felt like it.
Thank
It was
God.
glorious.
And it didn't need to adhere to like scheduled television premiere or finale dates, so you didn't have to like worry about sweeps week or what had just aired or whatever else. You could just drop it whenever you felt like it.
It was a simple time.
I miss it.
Yeah. I mean,
Because Disney Plus doesn't even do that now. They're like, no, you gotta watch that episode by episode. You're welcome.
Like, we still at least get to do other shows on Netflix that way. Just not the Marvel ones anymore.
Mm-mm. So it also allowed for a far darker and more adult tone, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
This was the first series released on Netflix of an eventual 6. And while this had previously been debated, like the canon placement of it had been heavily debated because it hadn't been confirmed for a really long time as to whether or not it counted as part of the MCU, because it did, and then it didn't, and then it did, and then it didn't. And then after it was canceled, no one knew.
Yeah.
It was confirmed by later appearances in both Spider-Man No Way Home and Hawkeye, so we can safely say that this sits among Phase 2 releases, though at the time the phases didn't actually include television outings like Phase 4 does.
Mm-hmm.
But it technically fits in that time period, so it's sort of Phase 2, but sort of not.
Yeah.
Planning, what is that?
What does this mean? It's set in 2014 and sits somewhere around the time frame of Guardians of the Galaxy, though the precise placement doesn't really quite matter given how removed
Guardians of
the Galaxy is from like the rest of the MCU.
It's literally out in space.
Yeah, it doesn't really get, like, you'll have little bits that connect to things, but for the most part, it doesn't really connect to anything.
Though they do, in like the first episode, they do reference the Avengers and the attack on New York, which I think solidifies it as actually being a part of the MCU.
Well, to be fair, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also did that in the first episode. Referencing Avengers is not the only thing that makes canon, apparently, because
Well, it did at the time.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would be canon if that's all it took. So, Daredevil Season 1 gives us a variety of both writers and directors, much like Agent Carter historically did. However, the show was created by Drew Goddard and was showrun by Stephen DeKnight, who also did writing and directing at various points in the show.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly
So, Goddard's other work included late Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel. He also wrote for Lost, Alias, Cloverfield, and one of the Cloverfield sequels, and he also directed Cabin in the Woods.
I still really dig Cabin in the Woods, not gonna lie.
It ages better and better.
It really does. It's just a good time all around whenever you watch it. Especially that ending.
It's too Joss Whedon-y for me.
Really?
It really is.
Aww.
But mainly because I just keep noticing that I just kept noticing at the time just his weird obsession with creepy government agencies behind everything. Like he's got like this pseudo kind of like
Yeah, but
conspiracy theory thing.
But this is different though because it actually incorporates a bunch of horror mythology.
Well, also it's better because he wasn't the one directing it.
I know, that's what I mean. It's a good time.
Oddly enough, though, both Goddard and Knight have weird overlaps with the Whedons because Stephen DeKnight also did writing for late Buffy and Angel. He also did an episode of Dollhouse.
Oh.
So he's got a lot of like weird overlaps with Joss Whedon stuff specifically. He also did a bunch of writing for Spartacus throughout the whole show. And as I found out, unfortunately, looking this up, is that Jed Whedon had a hand in a bunch of episodes of Spartacus as well.
Aww.
Just not season 1. And you can tell. Yeah. This isn't a Spartacus podcast, and I won't get into that. But you can tell.
It's just a show that we really like. At least up until a certain point.
Yeah, you can tell. But also, Stephen DeKnight also was the writer and director of Pacific Rim Uprising.
Ew. No.
You're welcome.
I hate it.
Got some winners, got some losers. Yeah.
But totally, I feel like that really fits the kind of Daredevil, I guess, altogether feeling of the series, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I will give them this. Their work on Angel prepared them for actually doing legalese in a TV show where it actually makes sense versus Angel where it was just shoehorned in and really boring.
Yeah.
Or fantasy legalese.
Well, Angel is like, it's Buffy, but it's all about lawyers.
Well, I remember you telling me the reason you didn't finish Daredevil was because you got bored.
I did get bored, but it wasn't.
She didn't get bored this time.
I didn't get bored this time because we mainlined the whole thing in 24 hours.
Yes.
No, it wasn't necessarily boredom so much. Well, it was kind of because I really didn't care about Vanessa. I still didn't really care about Vanessa.
But the show's more than just Vanessa.
I know, but it got to the point where like I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for the Kingpin, and then he showed up, and I'm like, I don't care. And that's kind of what happened originally. And like, I didn't hate it. I didn't even really dislike it that much. It just didn't grab me enough to become a priority for me to finish it when everything else kept coming out.
All right.
But I did finish it, so you can't even get mad at me now.
I'm not mad.
Get mad at your opinions.
I'm not mad.
Well, but they're not my current opinions. They were my old opinions. They're different.
Correct. That's
different opinions. That said, Angel was a lot of really bad legalese. This was not. They're very different things.
In diddly doodly.
Did you want to do the summary, Molly?
I can do the summary.
Since you wrote it.
Mm-hmm. I wrote it. Good. The west side of the west side of Midtown Manhattan, more popularly known as Hell's Kitchen, fights for its soul in the wake of the Chitauri invasion. In New York fashion, the ordeal is referred to only as the incident. Two men with sparring agendas in the name of improvement from the rubble, battling with wits and fists. Season 1 Daredevil is just as much a hero's journey as it is a villain's path. In one corner, we have Matthew Murdock, born and raised in New York, orphaned, blinded, and not one to stay down on the back. And in the opposite corner, we have a man born of Hell's Kitchen, a comeback kid of all his own. But we won't say his name for now.
Dun dun dun.
Dun dun dun.
Lovely, I love it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically, Matt's blind. He's a superhero. There you go. That's the show.
But he's also a lawyer.
These are the trials and tribulations.
Justice is blind, and so is Matt Murdock.
Yes, it is. Yes, he is. I feel like with a lot of superhero shows, even, I guess, Arrow and stuff, they do have that kind of, I'm starting out feeling. But at least from Matt's point of view and his story, I just really appreciate how much he's got just a rough start.
Yeah. I also don't feel like it retreads the same origin ground that a lot of stuff does. I may have a different opinion when we get to different shows.
Mm-hmm.
This one, on the other hand, like the origin part of it, I don't mind it.
Yeah.
You need it, and they don't just shove it all at you at
Not
once.
at once. Yeah.
They take time to do that.
And connect it to what he's actually going through in the present,
Mm-hmm.
which I like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was you, my dear friend, who the entire time, when does the suit show up? When does the suit show up?
I wanted it so bad.
No, you have to appreciate the black ninja outfit.
No,
yes!
I did not. I wanted the suit.
He looks
I mean,
better.
we all want the suit, but I actually really liked the black suit because how do you even start? Like, the only other superhero movie I can think of that was just kind of like, oh, I want to do this thing is like Kick-Ass, where he goes and buys like scuba gear and tries to do something with it. But what I can appreciate on the ridiculous level is Matt's like buying stuff from the internet and he's blind, so he has to like go into Amazon and listen to audio descriptors and try to like figure out what he's looking for. It's just, and then also be a lawyer. I just think that that's just beautiful and amazing and funny that way.
Or ordering it on the sly.
Yeah,
How did
right?
you get all this? The internet.
The internet, duh.
It's very much that like Jimmy Neutron excuse where they're all like, "How did you get this? The internet."
Yeah.
Or was that the Fairly Odd Parents? It was one of them where the excuse was always the internet.
It was a Fairly Odd Parents.
It was one of those shows.
Except they could use magic though.
Yeah, but then like the kid would have to explain to his parents where all the stuff came from, and you just be like, the internet. I knew it was one of them. It was one of them where the kid was infinitely smarter than the parents, which is most cartoons.
Yeah.
Yes. So, off that tangent. So, the primary cast of Daredevil includes Charlie Cox as Matt Murdock.
Yes.
AKA Daredevil. You have Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin. I forget if he actually has a name. I legit forgot his actual name.
Wilson Fisk.
Thank you.
What the hell?
Like, it blanked.
They
ADHD.
They say it so many times.
ADHD. All I knew was like, he's the Kingpin. All right? He's the Kingpin.
Of course you'd forget his actual name because of what you kept calling him during the whole show. Madam.
That too, but we won't go into that right now.
He was an incel. You're welcome.
He literally had sex, though. That doesn't...
Absolutely an incel. I don't care. He also had Deborah Ann Wool as Karen. Eden Hansen as Foggy. Toby Leonard Moore as Wesley. Vondi Curtis Hall as Ben Urich. Bob Gonton. I think I said that right because my notes almost look like Gunton. But I'm not positive. I think it's Gonton. As Leland Owlsley. I'm gonna butcher this name, and I'm sorry, but you have Eilert Zurer as Vanessa. Again, it wasn't the actress that I had an issue with. I just didn't care about Vanessa. And Rosario Dawson as Claire Temple, and then you had a bunch of secondary actors. So you had Peter Shinkota as Nobu, Wai Ching Ho as Madame Gao, Gideon Emery, our boy, what's up, as Anatoly Ranskahov. Did I say that? Ranskahov? There we go.
Yeah.
So my brain was like trying to do each syllable, and then it just sounded stupid.
Fenris represent.
Yes. And then Nikolai Nikolaev is Vladimir Ranskahov. And Rob Morgan is Turk Barrett, who kind of showed up and would disappear and showed up.
He shows up in every Netflix show.
It's incredible.
Does he really?
Yes.
Yeah, he connects them the same way Claire does, pretty much.
Claire is the glue that keeps the... Well, we can't say Netflix MCU together anymore, but for lack of a better term, the Netflix MCU. And then Turk Barrett is like the salty topping. I don't know.
So Turk Barrett's kind of like the Stan Lee.
Kind of.
Where he's got a cameo and everything.
Yeah, because he's like a two-bit criminal who's kind of everywhere.
That makes sense. And given that they're all set in the same spot in New York, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So this would be where y'all get to talk about acting if you want to talk about the acting.
So, Charlie Cox, the only other thing I had seen him in was Stardust. And he had derpy early 2000 boy haircut and
No,
very remarkable.
his second half of the movie haircut, chef
Marginally
kiss.
better.
Also, the fact that he's supposed to be Ben Barnes' son.
Yeah, that's also another weird little
Meta.
back in meta, yeah. And
Meta.
Very intense meta.
and
Billy's coming, and I will be so happy.
really is coming. But no. Charlie Cox in Stardust fights Henry Cavill
Yes.
Yes.
and wins.
God,
So
I forgot
technically,
it was Henry Cavill until you just said this
I thought it was
right
Cavill.
now, and I was like, oh my god, that is Henry Cavill. Cavill.
so
I thought it was Cavill. Oh.
Whatever, however you say his name.
Henry Hot Pants. Anyway,
yes. I
Daredevil
legit
Superman.
forgot about this. I'd seen Charlie Cox in a ton, but that's because I deliberately looked for a lot of it. Because he was in this old version of Merchants of Venice that I watched for one of my
Yes.
Shakespeare classes in college.
Yes.
Oh, cute. Okay.
He's in Casanova.
Yes, he was in Casanova, which I loved
Very baby faced.
extremely.
Well,
also-
he's got a youthful face.
Yes,
He's also he has also a
until
very,
he has facial hair.
he has a very beautiful face. Thank you. But he also was in Boardwalk Empire sporting an Irish accent.
He was also in that weird movie with Tom Hardy when they were both fetuses
Yeah.
called Dot the Eye.
Oh yeah.
That's a weird movie.
That was very weird.
Never heard of it, but it sounds weird, especially if they're both fetuses.
They're both
They're
incredibly
both
young.
babies. Yeah, they're so young.
They look like twinks.
Yeah, this
I'm
was
just
like
gonna
Tom
say.
Hardy before he looked like Tom Hardy. This was like
Yeah.
old school model Tom Hardy.
They're very pretty,
Oops.
very twiggy,
Oops.
very young.
Yeah,
Love
yeah,
this.
yes. It's such a weird movie. But yeah, I'd seen Charlie Cox in a ton, but
Yeah,
Stardust is mainly the thing I think everybody knows him from.
yes, but also, so funny enough, he had an audition for Han Solo after Daredevil, and because he's so used to being Matt Murdock, he botched the entire audition because he wasn't making eye contact because he's used to acting blind.
Oh my god.
Charlie, please. You would have been such a better Han Solo than the one we got,
Right.
even though I don't care about that movie and it still doesn't need to exist and should have just been about Lando and whatever.
gonna-
My opinions about Solo are not salient here.
Not gonna lie,
They're so low, we can't hear them.
Not gonna lie, I would have watched it if he had been Han Solo.
Same, but
I mean,
like, I just thought it was
same. I did
hilarious.
watch it and I kind of regret it. I would have regretted it less.
Yeah.
But as to Charlie's acting prowess as a blind person, he did trail an actual visually impaired guy, and I think that was pretty cool as far as trying to navigate the world and be more sensible about it. Especially when, I don't know, the median blind people, I feel like just because I'm a Daredevil fan, I've become more aware of how blind people are represented in television. But especially compared to the Ben Affleck Daredevil, it's just
We don't mention that. It doesn't exist.
it doesn't exist. But if it did, it really would have a lot of very poor representation of how a blind person navigates things. Like if you're walking with somebody, you don't grab their shoulder. That's not helpful to them. You grab their elbow because you're closer to their body and center of gravity, and less trip hazards and stuff like that. So I think it was just pretty cool as far as like his commitment to the role, clearly not just from being blind but just getting freaking ripped.
Yes.
I also appreciate how he never made himself cross-eyed like the Ben Affleck one did.
Oh my god.
Funny story. So the original Daredevil, the one that shall not be named, except we keep naming it, came out the year I got my first job when I worked at the movie theater.
Oh wow.
I got to see this for free. I still have merchandising release swag for that Daredevil.
Why would
That year in movies was so bad because you had Daredevil and then you had that first attempt at the Hulk.
Oh shoot, yeah.
A couple months later.
Fuck.
Both awful.
Those are the dark
Both
ages.
awful, and yet one of them still got a sequel because people cared enough about Jennifer Garner, I guess, except that I didn't think she was an especially good Elektra either.
It's kind of iffy on how much of a sequel it actually is, because it kind of just ends up being like a standalone Elektra movie.
Like a mid.
Well, I mean, kind of, but it spawned. It's a spin-off. How about that? I'll give it a spin-off.
Yeah,
it's a spin-off. It's sort of a sequel because that's how we ended up with her in the first place. But
the people like red leather.
Ugh. But yeah, I remember I don't even remember a whole lot about that movie other than Jon Favreau. Ironically.
Like random Jon Favreau. Have him as be Foggy Nelson, and I'm just, huh?
But yeah, I remember a lot of like the Matt Murdock stuff in that movie just being. Now, see, that one was intolerable and dull.
Yes.
And they did not make Matt interesting in any way.
They made him a creep, really.
None of his stuff made a whole lot of sense, but I mean, it's early 2000s, everybody was kind of a creep, unfortunately.
Yeah. I did appreciate at least, like, how organic a lot of the character chemistry was, like, because...
In this one, or the original?
Oh, no, in this one.
Yes. Okay, I was like...
No, because, like, given that we have a lot of the plot around Matt, obviously, because he's the main character, but a lot of it is filmed from his point of view and his awareness, so we understand why he's quiet so much. When the characters around him, like Karen and Foggy, are very articulate and always talking, and Matt's just constantly like listening and absorbing, and I think that it's just really fun that way, because then he looks like the absolute straight man. And
yeah. He super isn't. Yeah.
Super isn't. I know, right? Because he's just all over the place. And
like, I mean, that's one of the things I always loved about Charlie's performance, is that he tries to keep Matt very composed and reserved, but there's a lot of emotion in his performance.
And Matt, in general, is one of those, like, they try so hard to be lawful good. They super aren't.
He's just chaotic.
He super breaks the law, like, every day.
I'm a lawyer. You can't arrest me.
I'm above the law.
I'm going to backflip out of that one now.
Bye.
You can't just backflip from being arrested, Matt. Yes, I
Yes,
can.
Bye.
I object. Crashes through window.
Backflips out of your handcuffs. I object. This became the best Ace Attorney spinoff of all time.
Objection.
So, like, Charlie's incredible, and then we have Deborah Ann Woll, who's again kind of a sort of bright-eyed, not to be underestimated character, hot off the heels, at least for me, from Baby Vamp Jessica.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure most people knew her from True Blood.
Yeah, she actually, the first filming of Daredevil, she did, like, pretty much right after they ended filming True Blood.
Aww.
That makes sense.
Like, she went right from filming that to filming Daredevil.
Nice.
That makes sense, because she looks very similar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, her hair gets a lot blonder in the second season versus it being kind of reddish here still.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're
can I just say... Sorry.
What, Boo?
Oh, I just wanted to say that I feel like any hate on Karen is very undeserved, because they put this girl through the ringer in just the first few episodes, and I feel like Deborah manages to just... She's so good with her performance. She's so good at maintaining or trying... It feels like she's just any other person, just trying to live her life and keep her head above water. And the explosions of emotions that she has is clearly from trauma and clearly from her just trying to deal.
Yes.
And you feel every bit of her anger, and just, you kind of, you're like, yeah, Karen, claw their eyes out. It's fine.
See, this is far more articulate standing than me and Zachary Levi. But don't get it wrong, M stands Karen the same way I stand Fandral. You're welcome.
I do. I stand Karen. I stand Matt. I stand a lot of Daredevil.
It's just such a good, solid cast. Like,
it really is. They all support each other. They all have great chemistry. They all just, every time they do scenes together, it's like they're just building off of each other's performance and making it better. And you're just so engrossed in everything. You're engrossed in all their relationships. And you just don't want, like, the main three, Matt, Foggy, and Karen, you want them to be okay. You don't want anything bad to happen to them.
oh, absolutely. Oh my god.
And Ben's actor, too, is just so good. So good. Like, I remember the first time I watched Daredevil, and I cried when we got to...
Yeah, it's upsetting.
Oh, God.
It's upsetting. Versus you get to Vanessa, and I'm like, I don't care.
Well, that's you.
I still don't care. I just don't care. Also, yeah, Kingpin's an incel. You're welcome.
I actually really like Vincent D'Onofrio as the Kingpin.
Oh, I like him as the Kingpin a lot. I just like calling him an incel. A lot.
So much so that you forgot his real name.
Yes. Wilson Incel Fisk.
No.
Wow. Anyway,
I'm just gonna say, from my perspective, when I first started watching Daredevil, I binged the shit out of it, yes, but I also found him to be very intimidating. I found him to be very scary, and the fact that you never knew when he was gonna explode and kill somebody.
Oh yeah.
Which I think is what you want.
Bring back Fenris. I'm really upset.
I also think it helps that there's no gluing that head back on.
I'm so upset.
I feel like it really helped that I watched him in The Cell like years before I saw Daredevil, and he's horrifying in The Cell.
Yeah, you've been trying to get me to watch that for a while.
He's so...
Well, it's not like copies of that film are super easy to come by.
No, they're not.
We have not had the opportunity yet.
But because of how big he is, because of how tall he is, I genuinely think he's probably the best Kingpin we'll probably ever have.
I've also well, he's got this general, like, quiet intensity.
Yeah.
Because, he's a different kind of villain, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was thinking of, when you mentioned The Cell, I was like, oh my god, that's right, he's in that. Because I was thinking of, because he was in Law & Order, Criminal Intent.
Oh, yeah, he was. Yes.
Yeah, which is funny
Molly,
because
I completely forgot about that until you said that.
You're welcome.
Oscar Isaac was in that too for a hot minute.
Yes.
What?
But,
yeah, Oscar Isaac cameoed in that same show
for
a hot minute.
Almost everybody has been in the Law & Order episode. I'm just saying.
Yes, it's true.
I'm gonna have to look this up eventually.
Even Pedro, I think, at one point.
Oh yeah, Pedro for sure. But his character, Detective Goran, was a different kind of. So I feel like he was just like some sort of alternative universe Wilson Fisk, because it's funny because he has mommy issues and he's quiet and smart and.
He has hair.
He has hair, yes. And also being a detective, he's a, person who's trying to do the right thing. But it's just kind of kooky because he would do the similar kind of random pop-off. But not, like, in the same way as, like, when he's Wilson Fisk. Because it's just Shakespearean. I don't know. That sounds so, like, ugh. But he was so good.
No, I think he does. He does sound a lot like a Shakespearean villain. He sounds a lot like a combination of Richard III and Iago, actually.
My kingdom for a horse?
Yes.
My money for a dude I don't have to slam into the SUV door or the door of my SUV.
You embarrassed me. It's good times. Like, even though he is the bad guy, Spoilers, he's the bad guy.
I mean, I think everybody knew that.
Yeah, but just in case.
Hopefully,
Like,
if you didn't know that, this was not the podcast for you. Sorry.
No, but it's just you still have moments where you're kind of rooting for him, especially when there's flashbacks to him as like a kid, and you can totally get at least
Oh yeah, as a kid,
parallel.
especially. For
The
sure.
parallel's unmistakable, like how he latched to his mom the way Matt latches to his dad. It's like, oh, I see what you did there, guys. I see it.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I definitely thought that dad deserved it.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Dumb.
He did.
It's very much that Chicago, that song in Chicago.
He
Had it coming.
He had it coming.
100%.
Scuzzy.
It also just helped to like flesh his character out a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like,
I didn't want to super get into character until we got to character, but I'll just transition into that since that's largely where we are. So Daredevil season 1 was originally meant to lean on the later shows of Jessica Jones, Iron Fist, and Luke Cage to create the Defenders verse. It kind of does that.
Yep.
Sort of. I mean, they did eventually make Defenders, so it did do it.
I would say that it's more that the other shows were meant to lean on Daredevil.
Big time.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. That's fair. They were originally intended to all kind of lean on each other.
Even though Daredevil's the best.
Daredevil ended up kind of being the Iron Man of Netflix Marvel.
Pretty much.
Well, they changed the airing order, if I'm not mistaken. Originally, it was supposed to be Iron Fist being the first one out, and then Daredevil ended up to be the first one out. But I think that's for the better, TBH?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, I still haven't watched it. We'll see how I feel about it when we watch it.
I've warned her about it.
Oh. Yeah. So there was also no single comic storyline used in this one, unlike a lot of like the MCU entries where we can kind of point to, well, they definitely used this storyline and this storyline.
Yeah, we get
in this movie.
We get to that in the other seasons.
Yeah, they wanted to focus on the spirit of Daredevil in this one. Then you had the black costume inspiration from Frank Miller.
Hell yeah.
Which we love.
I still wanted the suit.
No, we love the black suit because it shows off his booty.
And his arms?
Wow, like you don't get that in everything else.
And his arms, yes.
Okay.
Damn arms.
Then you also, like, you obviously note the violence and the darker tone. This is clearly a far more adult outing for the MCU than we've gotten prior to now.
Oh, yeah.
Even including, like, the weird violence in little things that we've noted so far, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even with the tone of Winter Soldier, even with, the dude getting thrown into a propeller in Captain America. Or, like the weird socio-political stuff in Iron Man.
Mm-hmm.
This is still probably the most, quote, adult that Marvel ever gets and really has gotten.
I'd say it's probably the most violent, yeah.
For sure.
Tastefully.
Ironically, though, they did pull back on, like, more direct violence, aside from apparently that hallway scene. But for the most part, like, they tried to pull away from a lot of the direct violence, like Anatoly's death, right? Like, they could have filmed that. We could have sat and watched that dude's head getting crushed by a car door. Instead of hearing it.
He got decapitated.
And then seeing the after effects. But what they wanted it to be more psycho than The Walking Dead, which works for it because I wouldn't want to watch it if it was just straight up, like, gore porn.
Yeah, but they kept it tasteful violence. It was still violence and unmistakably like, ooh, this is a bad.
Well, and you kind of even see that with the hallway scene because you're going in and out of rooms.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is how they got away with, I'll get to that in a minute, but that's how they got away with filming it in a single take. It's also far more down to earth than most MCU outings, even the very, very Earth ones.
Mm-hmm.
This is due to, at the time, Marvel had a different person in charge.
Yes.
And he hated, allegedly and reportedly, whatever, hated, like, the magic aspect in Marvel, and that is why we had such a weird STEM focus on literally everything for a long time, even when it didn't make a lot of sense. Like, Asgardians? Nope. This is still ancient aliens. It's magic. Or it's not magic, it's science.
Yeah.
Ancient aliens. It's fine. Sure.
Thor's just an alien, like E.T.
Yeah, Thor's just an alien. It's fine. This isn't magic. We don't know what you're talking about. And these shows in specific really got hit with that the hardest. To be fair, I think it fits their tone a lot better. But at the same time, like, it's very indicative of really where they sat with not being able to use a lot more of, like, the fantastic elements of stuff. Because they are so grounded.
Yeah. But also, like you were saying, I think that at least Daredevil season 1, because it is still establishing its own narrative and universe for the Defenderverse, which is heavily focused on the Hand, which is a immortal ninja crime syndicate at all. But you can't have immortal ninjas without having an explanation for immortal ninjas. So the introduction to that is Stick, who we see through Matt is completely unreliable and full of bullshit. So I think that works out in the best kind of way.
Yeah. It's not necessarily a fault. It's just when you try and... It's kind of like what DC does when they take a thing where the tone works very specifically for that one thing, and then you try and take that tone and apply it to other stuff.
Oh yeah, then it's just...
No.
Which,
bad recipe.
Which, on a side note, Scott Glenn as Stick is great. You love to hate him.
I really did. I wasn't sure how we'd feel about him, but yeah.
It's like, okay, child abuse, nice.
Yeah, love it. On that note, also, you only have like a few MCU connections, at least this early on. They do exist, but they're very few and far between, other than, you know, everybody mentioning the Avengers is, you know, the tentpole thing. Kind of like Phase 4, everyone has to mention the Thanos at least once.
And the snap.
So, technically, Daredevil season 1 shares an orphanage with the first season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
We did get that far into it.
Yeah, so he and Skye come from Matt and Skye come from the same orphanage, supposedly. We don't know if they overlapped or, in theory, should have known each other or whatever. But despite these connections, it is not at all meant to, like, deliberately connect to AOS. And that's fair because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is not canon. But also you have the insignia used in Iron Fist and throughout, you know, the whole Netflix verse.
Yes.
Better, worse phrasing. And then, like, constant, like, little sneaky references to, like, Roxxon, which Agent Carter loved to do.
Yes.
They really love. But I mean, Roxxon was like a major plot point in Agent Carter, whereas like every other time you hear it, it's like an offhand reference in like an Iron Man movie or something.
Yeah, it's an Easter egg.
Yeah.
Evil
which it is here as well. But
corporation.
It's sort of like, we really want to mention Oscorp, but we can't.
Pretty much.
It's Wish Ops Corp.
We're all in Midtown Manhattan, but we can't talk about Spider-Man.
Because reasons.
You know, reasons that involve Sony, maybe. Allegedly.
Ironically, Sony is the one who turned around and was like, yo, Daredevil's canon. And we're like, yay, thank you.
Oh, we knew that. I knew that.
You win some, you lose some. You win some, you lose some.
Yeah.
So the cinematography for Daredevil season 1 was done by Matthew J. Lloyd. Sometimes he just goes by Matt Lloyd. His other work included 2 episodes of Fargo.
Ooh.
He also did cinematography for the Power Rangers movie, the recent one, not the old one, the recent one. He also did the cinematography for Defenders.
That makes sense.
And he did the cinematography for Spider-Man Far From Home. Not the one that confirms Daredevil.
Ironically.
So they also cited this thing called The Raid as the inspiration for the hallway fight scene, and it was done because it was done in a single take. And the way that they got it, I alluded to this a minute ago, but the way that they did this was they used this technique called a Texas switch.
Yeah.
Which is like sneakily / invisibly transitioning between the actor and the stunt double, and that's how you get away with that when you're going from room to room.
Oh, that's cute.
So people are coming in and leaving, so you can switch actors.
Yeah.
That
quickly and easily.
That makes sense big time.
Though I will say this, it's not something called The Raid. It is a movie.
Well, I didn't know. All I had was in quotes, so I didn't know if it was a TV show. I didn't know if it was a movie. I wasn't sure what it was.
It is a phenomenal action martial arts movie that you really need to see. It has an amazing amount of fights in it that are intensely awesome to watch. And you want that soundtrack pumped into your veins so you can like beat off a whole building of people. Because that's what it is. It's about this group of cops that go into this building and are literally fighting level by level to get up in it.
Yeah, so apparently that's what they based the hallway fight scene on.
Well, that's strange because I always thought it was inspired by the hallway fight scene in Old Boy, which was
I thought that was it.
I mean, there may be more than one thing. That was just the only one that I found cited.
Well, I always thought it was Old Boy because if you look at Old Boy, the hallway fight scene in that, it's all done in one take. It's very brutal. It's very violent. And it even has very similar lighting in that compared to the hallway fight scene in Daredevil.
I will believe you, and I agree with you. I'm just saying this was the only thing that was cited when I did my research. Was the Raid.
I just wanted to put those side notes in there.
No, I agree with you. And I feel like that is a fair thing to know, for sure.
Well, we do know for a fact, though, that after Daredevil did this hallway fight scene, pretty much every other Netflix show wanted to include a scene like it, even if it was not Daredevil.
It was just so cool.
Yeah.
Except that it isn't cool the fifth time that you're trying to mimic it not as well.
No, see, you're kind of wrong there. And I'm going to tell you you're kind of wrong.
Oh.
Because in season 2, there's this amazing
Okay, but it's the same
scene.
show. It's the same show. That's different than a different show trying to imitate it.
And then the one in season 3 is even more intense than that.
Yes.
Look, the other season's doing it. That's fine. I don't have an issue with that.
Oh.
I'm talking about other shows trying to imitate it, and then it kind of feels weird.
Okay.
No, the same show trying to up itself, that's a completely different convo. Also, I don't know enough about the rest of the show, obviously, because I've only seen the first season.
Well, you're going to learn.
Haven't I?
Yeah, you're going to learn. That's right.
I will. So, the show itself was filmed in New York City. You can tell.
Yeah.
You can 100% tell. It looks like it. It feels like it. And as Molly noted when we were watching it, it was the first Netflix show to use descriptive audio or descriptive video service as an audio track.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Which is incredibly fitting.
But also a little funny and sad that they didn't think about that from the jump. You know?
Yeah, it is. But I'm glad something taught them that they needed to use it, right?
Yeah, big time. Especially because, I mean, I think it's a very empowering story for anybody with disabilities. Sure, Matt does have a more powerful boost with his lack of vision, but I think the fact that he just still is in a constant state of vulnerability but still using it as a strength is just, it's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
He doesn't let it become all that he is.
Mm-hmm. And not only that, like, it's hyper-awareness, which could be a metaphor for, you know, any other kind of mental illness, to be honest.
For sure.
You know.
Well, yeah, it's true. Like, the disability conversation can be had around, you know, really any kind of disability at that point.
Yeah.
Oh. But it's a strength.
We ended up watching, like, a big chunk of one of the episodes with the descriptive video service on, or at least Molly and I did. I don't know if you were out here with us.
Yeah, I was cooking dinner when you guys did.
That's right. That's right. I knew that we did it at some point. It was a little strange because I was very unused to it.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and it was nice to know that it was there.
Yeah.
And
Damn
sometimes
right it
it
should have
brings
been
your
there.
attention to different things, because when you're absorbing
Yeah.
media without directly like looking at it, and you're relying on the script or camera direction,
Mm-hmm.
it adds a little bit of intensity or attention to detail you didn't think about. Like,
Well, yeah, especially with my ADHD brain, where I have to like have captions and subtitles on with everything, where I
Yeah.
can't really parse what's being said half the time.
Yeah.
I don't remember which time I watched it all the way through, but in the audio descriptor where after Elena Cardenas meets her untimely end, where Matt finds her purse in the crackhead's like apartment, and he's feeling over the flowers, like the way that the audio descriptor had it, it was just like a punch to the gut, because it's like familiar red flowers on a worn handbag. And then I was like, because then you're realizing it like with Matt, but like it's her purse.
Yeah.
Wow, that's upsetting.
That
I
is
know,
upsetting.
but still, just like, just as good as if you seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a good segue into the sound design.
Yeah,
and soundtrack
it is.
Of it.
I was about to say that. Way to go.
I absolutely love the sound design in Daredevil. And I think that is one of its biggest strengths, because you get to hear the world the way Matt hears it.
Mm-hmm. I didn't actually notice a lot of the music outside of like the theme song,
Which is amazing.
But I did absolutely notice the sound design for sure. For sure. It's one of those where it's like, this deserves an award. It's kind of like watching Dune, and you're like, if anything else wins this, it's a crime.
Yeah.
You know?
I was wondering when the Dune reference was going to drop. I feel good now.
Girl, it drops every episode. No, it doesn't actually, but it comes close. It comes close.
But
I stand Dune.
Just the heartbeats and breathing and watch ticks.
The heartbeats especially.
And like the way certain shoes sound.
The way objects sound. The way the rain is. The way that sounds will come in and out of focus, in and out of the periphery. It almost ends up being like the soundtrack itself. I'd say it probably is, because it's the soundtrack of Hell's Kitchen.
Hey.
Well, and that's funny because the composer for the soundtrack, I don't know who actually did the sound design. I couldn't find anything on that. But the composer for the soundtrack is Joe Pisano, and his other work actually includes a lot of video games, which also happen to technically often have like separate audio tracks for things like the sound effects and the ambient noise and the music. So I mean, that if somebody's coming from that background, that would make a lot of sense too. I don't know if that's really how it worked in this show.
Well, I mean, it made him a good pick for it.
So his other work includes The Defenders. He did the music on that as well. He also did the music for the Maze Runner movies, like the whole series of them.
Wow.
He didn't do like a lot of like stuff that I recognized, unfortunately, but video game work wise, he did the music for Mass Effect Andromeda, which was the Mass Effect that no one really liked.
Is that the glitched out version?
Yes. He also did the music for Detroit Become Human. Jason. I'm sorry, wrong David Cage game, but I don't care.
Origami Killer.
Origami Killer. I don't care that it's the wrong David Cage game. They're all the same.
It's always what I think about anyway.
They're all the same.
But as someone who actually has listened to tracks from the Daredevil soundtrack, I can definitely say that it's good music. It's very good music. When it's slow and soft, it is slow and soft. It's very emotional, emotive music. And when it's very tense, you know, it does help you get into that, things are going to pick up now.
They're popping off.
And of course, the opening theme is just something I literally listen to on a loop for like
it's a
hours.
bop.
I know.
It's a bop.
It is.
Yes.
So we are hitting almost an hour, so I'm going to start bringing this into overall ratings and final comments. Molly, you go first.
Having
Out of
no
5.
idea what I was getting into when I first decided to watch Daredevil, but
Mhm.
really enjoying superhero shows and really enjoying Law and Order, this was just the sweet spot. I
Yeah.
think a day didn't go by where someone was like, "Oh, what are you watching?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I'm watching Daredevil. You should need to watch it." Like 10 out of 10, all horns up. It was so
5 out of 5.
5 out of 5. Yes, love this. 10 out of
Rubric
5.
is 5, but I will take a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 5.
Because I know where to put that. I know how to do that
A
math.
10 out of 5.
What about you? I assume it's a 5.
A 10 out of 5.
A 10 out of 5.
Yes.
5 avocados
Okay,
out of 5 avocados.
Yeah.
An avocado, thanks.
No, these are good avocados.
Free shavakadoo. So, go ahead.
I just want to see Matt's expression when someone actually shows him the free shavakadoo.
Oh, hell yeah.
Or someone plays that vine for him.
He's like,
The hell is this?
but yeah, it was like, it was other people that basically got me into watching Daredevil. And yes, that was you, Molly. And I immediately loved it. I think the episode that really clinched it for me was probably the second or third episode that I was like, okay, I love this show and I need to watch the rest. I need to consume the rest of it as fast as I can.
No.
Yes, because I love the cast. I love the lighting, the look. I love the tone. I love the relationships. I love the music. I love everything about it.
It's lovable.
That's why I stand. Yeah, that's why I stand this show so hard, and that's why I wanted you to watch it.
No pressure.
Yeah, okay. So as much as you have been bullying me to watch this, you probably are not going to be super... like, I did love it. I liked it a lot. However...
Oh, boy.
However, I'm still going to hit somewhere around a 4 or 4.5.
What?
Okay, Russia.
Right.
I didn't care about Vanessa. I can't get over how little I care.
That is
about Vanessa. I got really. There are parts where I just got really bored with the Kingpin, and I'm just shut up, bud. I don't care. Just shut up.
That's no reason to give it a below 5 out of 5, madam.
You know what? I'm allowed. I'm allowed my opinion.
You're allowed. Okay. I mean, I'm
also, I wanted more costume, and I didn't get it.
Wow, that's
I'm
so
curious to see how this will play
That's
out.
why it gets to sit at a 4.5. Where's my costume?
I'll be interested to see how this plays out in a retrospective after season 2, season 3.
Yeah, I mean, sure. We'll see how I feel. I may change that rating. It's fair.
That's fair.
But I'm allowed because there are parts of it that really didn't click with me as well as the rest of it. Also, like, they're all, like, really minor things. That's why it's not, like, really low. It's, like, a 4.5, right? But, like...
4.75?
You got rid of... You got rid of the brother that was more interesting.
And that
it was strategic, though. It was strategic.
But I'm upset.
You did that.
And I took that personally.
I took it personally. I'm gonna be the Billy meme. I'm not gonna lie. I'm taking this a little personally.
You can take it personally. I'm just saying. Like,
I did.
I feel like what was
not enough Ben Barnes. 4.5.
I feel like the unexpected nature of it also played into a lot because it veered left in places where you think it would have, like, ended. And
yes, it did. It did do that, and I did enjoy that.
Yeah.
Keeps you on your toes.
It
literally.
Sure do.
Yes.
Constant
Literally.
vigilance.
Yes.
So on that note, thank you for listening to this episode of FANSPLAINED. If you enjoy what we do, consider donating on Ko-fi. Everything we make goes right back into the production quality of the show. We appreciate all of our subscribers and everything you do, and we're thankful for anything from Hulk smashing that like button
Do it.
or psychically, blindly punching it, but do whatever you want.
Kicking it in the face.
Kicking it in the face even, just hit it.
Roundhouse.
to your questions and comments on each episode, and especially sharing the show with your friends. Fansplained is a weekly media criticism and deep dive podcast, or usually weekly. We're catching up. And we are currently still working our way through the chronological order of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So next episode, we'll be covering Age of Ultron. God help us.
Yep.
That's how I feel. You can find our updates here on YouTube as well as on Twitter and Coffee at Fansplained. If you want more of our conversations on the MCU and other fandoms, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell for new episode notifications. So until next time, Salt Shakers, this has been Ryan.
And M.
And Molly.
There she is. With the Fansplained podcast. And we will see you next episode.